The European Commission is currently looking at reviewing its policy on collective redress and the introduction of class actions in Europe. And with our experience from the United States, we feel it's important to share the problems that we have experienced over there and to explain why it is very important to put these laws with safeguards and pay attention to where the problems can happen. For instance, how the lawyers can make money on this, and whether the system is put some incentives for lawyers or investors, litigation funders, to make excessive amount of money instead of focusing on redress and making sure that the consumers themselves obtain reparation of the harms they would have incurred. So we are there to really look at the systems, looking at analyzing them, comparing them. So the report looks into collective redress from a defendant's perspective, how companies experience those type of litigation in 10 different member states, and whether we see already signs of problems that we experience in the United States and in other jurisdictions like Canada and Australia, and whether those signs are here, and whether it's happening, and whether if the Commission is going to review these policies, whether or not they will pay attention to these trends, and whether or not they will put in place the safeguards that actually the Commission recommended some years ago. For instance, issues like opt-out, opt-in, whether they would consider advocating for opt-in, whether they would allow or not contingency fees for lawyers, or whether or not they would put some restrictions and some regulation on the practice of third-party litigation funding. This is a new practice that comes from Australia, and where you have a lot of money coming on in litigation invested by hedge funds without any regulation, and they would invest in those big litigation and make enormous amount of money on the back of the defendants and the consumers. So we're trying to look at those areas and see whether the Commission would put some safeguards.